Hello everyone, this is Leon Cruz from the Intense Apex Alpha Male blog website, and this is episode number 2 of our podcast. I'll be interviewing Miguel Jimenez, also known as Michael Hur, from Shield of the Sun. He has his own YouTube channel, Shield of the Sun, and he has many videos talking about many topics pertaining to biblical prophecy, politics, and Hollywood, and just about almost everything that affect our lives, how it coincides with biblical prophecy and the Word of God. Also, I recorded the podcast, but stupid me did not press the record button, so we missed a small portion of the introduction from Miguel Jimenez. So I would like to go over some of that. One of the things I stated to him was I heard him on the Fourth Watch radio network. He was talking about the Project Montauk. And I saw his video on the Bethel Church pastor who attacked him, Pastor Hogarth. And I went on to tell him that I don't understand how these pastors call themselves Christians and go on a tangent attacking this man of God because he's Hispanic and Jewish. And the person in the pulpit was talking about white superiority and very racist things based on what Michael was talking about. And if all this is true, which I have no doubt it may be because I've seen churches like that, I commented that Pastor Hogarth is nothing but a punk and a loser for doing that. You see, if you're a real Christian, there's no such thing as race. There's only one race, the human race. Okay? And we are all created in the image of God. Now, not all of us are Christians or children of God. Not all of us. That you have to accept Christ Jesus as your Lord and Savior to become a child of God. But we all are creations of God, created in the image of God. So, I spoke about that to Michael Hur. I also let Michael know that I was a Bible study teacher for the youth, and I still collaborate with many of them by sending links of his videos to them, and it has helped them greatly in terms of understanding the gospel of Jesus Christ. And it has helped them understand better the Word of God on how it's applied to many of the things that are going on in the world today, which many youth have questions on. So that was the portion that I didn't record because I didn't press the record button. Also, I asked Michael, how did he come up, who is Michael Hur, and how did he come about creating Shield of the Sun? So he commented that just like God changes the disciples' names in the Bible, like he called Saul of Tarsus Paul, and he called Peter, which means the small rock, and Paul from Saul to Paul, meaning Saul means the great one, and Paul means the little one. Once Michael accepted Jesus Christ as the Lord and Savior, his friend asked him, why don't you change your name? And he decided to change his name to Michael Hur. Hur, like with Ben-Hur, because that's his favorite movie, and he can relate to the character of the story because his life mirrors a lot of what Ben-Hur went through in the movie. There was a period of time where Michael lived in the Y, which was one step away from being homeless, and he had his ups and downs. Even till this day, he's having trials and tribulations. He's being attacked by PayPal. He's been attacked on YouTube. You have the idiot loser trolls leaving stupid comments on his YouTube pages, and you also have the losers putting him down, people who call themselves Christians attacking him without any facts. So he's getting it from all angles, just like Ben-Hur did in the movie. So we have to keep him in our prayers, and please visit his channel and join. I hope you enjoy this YouTube podcast, because I also plan to re-interview him. I've truly enjoyed talking with him, and I can continue talking with him for many, many, many hours, because he's a walking encyclopedia of wisdom and knowledge. So these are the portions that were not recorded, because, again, I forgot to press the record button. But once I found out that it wasn't recording, I immediately started, and it picks up where he starts saying how he started his YouTube channel to reach out to many other people who have questions about the Word of God. So I hope you enjoy it. Please leave your comments on my website, not on my YouTube, because I disabled that. I don't want the idiot trolls leaving stupid comments on my YouTube channel, but you can go to my website, which is www.intenseapexalphamale.com, and collaborate with me on there. Okay, so I hope you enjoy this interview, and God bless you all.
That because they want to monopolize it, and they want to monopolize it for money reasons and political reasons. And I was like, that's, oh man, and then that was it. And then when I started exposing churches more, and then when I switched over and I said, okay, we did a lot of videos covering a lot of supernatural aspects. So what I wanted to do, we're going to be raw biblical. That's when it started with the Book of Acts, and I really wanted to just really drive home what the Bible says. And when I started doing that, then they turned the heat up. And then all of a sudden, they're first talking about the nitpicking, but then I just ignored that. And then they were just basically striking me on more copyright, and then more videos had to come down because of complaints. And it really was based on the fact that they just wanted to try to either discourage me. When they couldn't discourage me, then they were going to try to cause division. When that didn't work, I don't know what they're going to try to do now, but it's just, I don't care in terms of what they want to do, because every time they do it, it just grows more. It's like what you were saying before. Every time they were killing the Christians in Paul's day, every time they were taken from them and making life hell for them, all it did was make the church grow and grow and grow. And that's what I'm seeing with this, is that the more and more I keep taking their hits, the more and more I get up, and the more it grows. And it's like I was talking to God in my spirit, like, just with prayer and all. And I was telling him, I'm living your life. And usually it was funny, because I'm like, I realized, because some people say, we walk with Christ, and we all do, but, like the moment when you realize you really, really are, it's a weird feeling. It's sort of like, man, I just want to go home, or I don't know why I'm doing it.
Right.
But it really felt at the time that God was like, that this is it, that you're in the midst of it. And, I just felt like, it does come from the fact that they do that to us because we are Christians.
Exactly.
And we're real. That's really why they do it. They wouldn't bother with you if you were like them. If you're like them, who cares,
Right.
They wouldn't bother with you at all. But when you're really talking the truth, and you really want people to know the truth, not because you want to just freak them out, but because you feel obligated that they should know, oh God, you're an absolute threat. Then after that, they want to come at it. But I think Huggard's case was, he tried to do it sneaky, and he tried to do it under the carpet. But he just, it's like the saying, I've been doing this for too long. I mean, I've been doing it for 16 years. I've been dealing with racial groups like that even before I was a Christian for 16 years. So I think, there's nothing they can do that surprises me.
You know what I find surprising, Michael? These people, they call themselves Christians. I don't get that. I mean, how can, first of all, as a Christian, there's no such thing as race. There's only one race, the human race. Cultures, yes, that exists. But the race, I even hate using that word. And, how can you call yourself a Christian and talk this garbage? I don't understand that. And then you start making distinctions between skin complexions and that's pathetic. I mean, I don't get it. And you see that also in many like the people who attack you on YouTube, and it's quite a few, and these people are, first of all, they don't have any facts. I can't really listen to them long enough because their voices kind of like aggravate the heck out of me, and it's pathetic. It's pathetic. I mean, there was one person, a woman. I don't want to mention the name because I don't want to give her any credit, but you called her out. So I went to her channel just to check out what she had to say, and in a matter of seconds, I got really turned off. I said, this person is really a loser, and why even bother? I mean, I don't get that. What's your opinion on that?
Well, okay, with Queenie.
Right. That's the one, right?
She's a Wiccan, so Wiccans are not very smart, and she's part of a set that's more prejudiced, so they're more based in ignorance. So she tried to play on the ignorance of others. She thought that by bringing up shirt colors and bringing up stupid stuff that they would just follow along. Because
in the nice picture you have in the background of the horse and the woman, she even made fun of that. I said,
Exactly. She really thought she could just play on the heartstrings of people's prejudices, but it really backfired on her. It really embarrassed her, and that was because I was never her enemy, and that's why it failed on her. And she was lying through the whole video. So not only am I not your enemy, but you're also going to lie about me. So I have no animosity toward her, but you're also going to lie, and that's why she ended up looking stupid.
And these are false Christians.
Yeah, she tries to play Christian. She says she's a Christian on there, but you see, there's Wiccan groups that proclaim Christianity because they have a doctrine called white magic. White magic entails a New Age belief where you would combine aspects of Jesus' teachings along with aspects of nature worship. So they'll say they're Christians as a way to monopolize that particular field, so that when another Christian confronts them, they'll be confused by it. They'll say, well, I'm a Christian too. And so they stop and they have to reconsider their words and not realize what they're really dealing with. This is a combination of what they call the yin and the yang, the black and the white. That in witchcraft, what it's taught within the white magic doctrine is that you adapt forms of Christianity as a way to combat their enemy as they see it. And that's actually something taught. The reason why I know that is because I used to study witchcraft, and I used to study New Age doctrines, and I used to be into astrology. And my ex-wife was also a witch.
Yeah,
so
I heard of that interview.
Yeah, she was the real deal on that. So a lot of that I was able to learn, really what they do. My mother-in-law, for instance. My mother-in-law, if you met her face to face and didn't know what she was, you would think she was sweet as pie. You would think that's a wonderful Christian lady. She's in the Lutheran. She's a teacher to children. You would have no clue who she really is at night. They have a dual personality that they believe in because these people love acting. The thing about musing is that musing for them, they use it in the arts of witchcraft, with the Holly arts, which is to act, which is the formulation of lies. And they love to play characters. So they have a day character that's Christian, and then they have another personality that's dark, and that's their real personality. But they don't tell anyone that because that's based in their traditions. It's based in their own family generational heritages. The churches, even in the colonial days, a lot of people did not know that not all colonial churches were Christian. Many of the organizations were more of the universal church. Some were more the esoteric church. The Hippolytics and the Quakers, a lot of them were into New Age facets and witchcraft facets. So even when they told people they're Christians, their Christianity doctrine was not biblical. It was not from the Bible. They were taking pieces of it and teaching it. So when we fast forward to today, what we have are the same traditionalists who derive from the Jesus occults. And that's why they got called that name, because they were using God's name to formulate their own occult and to hide behind a cloak of righteousness while endorsing political maliciousness. And that's why they would kill you with one hand and then try to save your soul with the other. It's nothing new. Before that, the Catholics did it, and that's who they learned it from. Because in ancient Catholicism, the Vatican actually was the temple of Jupiter. Jupiter had a doctrine where it was kill the Christians, but that didn't work. And then Christianity won the Romans over. So what they had to do then was Jupiter then adapted to what was called Catholicism, which was the combination of paganism and Christianity.
Right.
And with that, they created a doctrine where we're going to adapt Christianity into our government. We're going to proclaim it the number one religion. We're all going to be Christians. We're going to make an emperor. We're going to say this popular emperor who conquered England is now a Christian. He has renounced paganism. We're going to make it a big celebration for the sole purpose that since they couldn't force it out, they were going to mandate it. They were going to control it. They were going to make Christianity into one of their traditions and make Jesus on par with one of their gods, at least by the conception of what they can make people believe. It was really a huge deception. And the occults that came on the Plymouth Rock, that came to America, representing different religious factions, that's really what they were. They were really occult factions that were formulating with the people, formulating their beliefs. So there were real Christians among them, but they were very few, very rare, compared to all these witches because in effect that's what their religion was. It was witchcraft. They'd be offended if you call them witches, but I mean, biblically they're witches, and so they really, that's why they do what they do. So the racism part, the reason that comes into play is because they feel, and this is how they see it, which is sick, they basically feel that white superiority was placed by God because God used them to punish the Native Americans and other lost Israelite tribes for their sins against God with the idolatry and everything. But what they fail to understand is that their calamity or their part in taking part in the genocide was also a sin on their hands. It was an evil force punishing this evil, but at the same time, the very evil would actually be judged and punished for the evils that they took part in. This is the part they don't want to teach in church, that they are the apostate, the Luciferian nation that was prophesied to not only spank Israel, if you will, but also at the same time to establish an antichrist government. But they don't want to see it that way. They want to see it as, no, we're creating Jesus as heaven on earth, and we're going to make the New Jerusalem here, and they got this whole other thing, whole other spin on Revelation. So biblically, that is, where their premise is, but at the same time, that's also their curse. They feel they're privileged to talk that way. They feel they're privileged to talk down to you because they represent the people that runs the government, and they represent the people that works with the bankers, and the bankers chose them as their favorite.
Yeah.
So in that, they feel privileged to laugh at our calamity, to make fun of our calamity, even make fun of our people every time they want to. And when one of us becomes on par with them and even goes beyond them, we're instantly a threat. We're not popular. We're all of a sudden, you got to throw them under a bus. You got to do what you got to do, and that's their mentality because it's done out of fear. These people, the Bible prophesies of them, and I feel bad for them. I mean, I hate to say it like that because I know they've done a lot of horrible things.
Right.
But it's because I know where they're going. It's a fact that the Bible prophesies that the ancient would be conquered by children. But when the ancient learn who they are, they're going to ascend regardless of them. Because the thing is that, Israel learned it before. For 400 years, we were oppressed by Egypt, and then look what happens to Egypt.
Yeah.
When Israel became strong, we sinned, and we were allowed to party down for 400 years, and then look what happened to us. We were scattered.
Yeah.
And then look at the United States now. They're going in on year 300. They can get all braggy as much as they like, but I know the end result. And when that day comes, it's going to be 3 times worse for them than it ever was for us. Because we already had our age. We already had our time. We already had our knowledge, and we're going to have another one. And it's going to ascend, and then we're going to be done with this world. But them, on the other hand, they need to conform and repent to Christianity, real Christianity that we're representing, or they can face the curses, and that's all I can say on that.
Yeah, and you know what's fascinating? You pointed out some amazing facts there. There are so many people like that, and I wonder. I say to myself, why? Like, for example, you, Michael Hur, are so knowledgeable and see all of this and humbly teach it, and yet you have people, adults, who we assume are capable of reasoning, refuse to learn and repent. I get into a lot of debates on that, and I tell them, I said, you got to humble yourself, and you have to seek the Lord and stop preaching or talking this garbage, because I'm from the Puerto Rican culture, and my father, I didn't really get to know him because he cut out on our family when I was about 5. So I came from a broken home. But from what I understand, he was into Santerismo, which is, well, you know what it is. It's like witchcraft. I call it Satan worship because that's what it sounds like, but it's witchcraft. And my grandmother from my father's side was into that, and a lot of Hispanics are into that garbage. I mean, I was born and raised in the hood in New York City, and you see all these botanicas, witchcraft stores everywhere. And my sister, when she went to a true Bible-believing church, because my mother used to have a shrine of all these statues, she told her that was a sin. So my mother humbly accepted that, took a hammer to everything, threw them out, and accepted Christ. And I said to myself, it's simple. All you have to do is humble yourself and learn. But yet, these people, it's like there's a veil over their eyes. They refuse to understand these things. And it's like you said, a lot of this witchcraft garbage and Christianity is mixed into a mush. And like you just pointed out, your in-laws, at night they were one thing and during the day another. But are they smart enough to know why do that? Why not accept Christ and go the right way? You see, that these are the things that puzzle my mind.
Yeah, I feel you on that. The reason why is stubbornness, and when people are into Santeria, they have a very strong addiction to their personal demons. It's a form of pleasure. It's a form of feeling better. A lot of people in the Santeria, they come from also broken homes. So that Santeria kind of replaces what they lost or what they feel like they lost. And in terms of the fact that God can always be a better replacement in terms of pain. And so what they feel is that they've been hurt, they've been really put down. So in this, they feel like it lifts them up. And it doesn't, it's just a temporary high, but it ruins their lives. But it really comes from the fact that when adults reach a certain age and when they've been thinking a certain way for a very, very long time, they become set in their ways. And when a person is set in their ways, particularly in this system, they become too consumed on just bills, work, and the influence of the world.
Yeah.
They start to become what God was saying about Manan. Manan isn't so much like the worship of money. It's more of the worship of the world and the concerns and the cares of the world.
Right.
That there would be this two spirituality, and God is saying you have to follow God and not the world. And that's why he was saying how the narrow path is only for the few, that only the few will make it, because there's this broad thinking in the world that you just have to be faithless, give in, screw it, light candles and chant and, go watch porn and things of this sort, that's a broad way of thinking, and it's a cop-out. But they think it's healthy. And as for others, who really do belong to God, they were chosen, really from the beginning. They were already known. And that's why they don't shake with that rhythm. It's for them, they look at that and they're like, I can't follow you down there. And when you see people doing Santeria, it breaks your heart, because it's like, do you want to go to hell with a first-class ticket? I mean, seriously.
Well, that's it. All expenses paid.
Yeah, right. They get offended at us because we tell them the truth, because over time, I mean, the thing with the Bible is it always tells us to be discreet with who we talk to, but at the same time, if we're seeing it, it's right there in front of us, and if there is this issue, we're going to have to talk about it. and they don't want to hear that, and they get offended, and I understand that, but at the same time, it's like, you see what it's doing to them, and you can even see what it does to their kids and everything else. Like, people who play with Santeria tend to have kids involved in gangs and tend to have kids killing each other on the street. And they tend to have a lot of bad things going on in their homes with cancer and other, people turning gay and stuff, and it's just crazy, and it's like, man, don't you think any of that is happening because you're doing this stuff in your room right now? And like, no, I'm going to get a spell, and I'm going to go down here, we're going to the shop, and I'm going to put this spell in my mop, and I'm going to shake it up. I remember my grandmother did that, and my grandmother had that problem, and I remember she took me to that store one time. I was like, what the hell are we doing here? And I remember that, man. She used to put that stuff in her mop bucket and start mopping the floor with it, and I just remember thinking, man, all my uncles are in gangs, and you're doing this. And
yeah. When I was a kid, I like I said, my mother, when she was younger, she was ignorant in that, so she would buy her candles. So I was about 10 years old, and we walk into the place. It had a nice smell, and they used to sell, candy and toys. As a kid, you get attracted to that. But I remember the owner of the store had a piece of bread nailed to the doorway, which had a bunch of ants and roaches around it, and an Indian pointing right to the bread. So I look at that, don't think of anything, and I asked him, why do you have a piece of bread there? He said, so that we'll have our daily bread, okay? Which is, that's give us this day our daily bread, right? And I asked him, what's the point of the Indian pointing to that? He said, that's to keep the demons away. So now, as I got older, I said, he was actually attracting all of that there.
Wow, really? Oh, man. It's amazing, right? Like, the things they think of, it's like they got to tell themselves that, to just justify what they're doing. Like, you could tell. It's like, you don't need to be doing that, man. Like, there's so many better ways. Why waste your time?
Of course.
And they do. They do. Unfortunately, they do.
Yeah, they had all these potions and powders and all these strange statues and everything. Now, as I got older, I look back at that and I say, boy, mankind is really foolish. I mean, sometimes I say to myself, in Bible studies, there are a lot of kids that ask me, do you actually think God is going to send all of these people to the hell? And I said, look, God is a gentleman. You see, first of all, it's sort of like when you're dating, right? You cannot make a girl fall in love with you. You cannot. It's by choice. So Jesus is a gentleman. He wants you to come to him by choice, right? Now, he's going to let you go your way without messing with your free will. Now, if you're going to partake in crap like that, right? The Lord is telling you, don't do that. It's like a parent. Don't do that because these are the consequences. You see? So he's not going to put a gun to your head. He's going to, he's giving you a choice. The choice is up to you to decide. You see? And unfortunately, yes, a lot of the people are going to go to hell because of their own choices. You see? And just like we've just discussed, look at all the cruel and evil things that are going on right now. I mean, really, how can you not expect a punishment for most of what's happening in the world?
Oh, yeah, I mean, you explained that beautifully, man. Like, that's absolutely right.
Yeah, but
that's exactly what God presents it. Is people send themselves to hell. They really do.
Yeah.
I mean, you read on in Revelation, you find that out. Like, in the judgment, the white throne judgment. Even then, they're not sorry, but they're not also lying at the same time. At that point, there's no delusions of deception. It's, I'm going to hell because I really can't live here. They are different. Something about people who go to hell, from the beginning, it was already decided they would because God knew the choice.
Right.
But he was so merciful to them that he wanted it to be clear that, when they consciously go to hell, they know why, and they know every opportunity they had not to. And the funny thing is that David in the Psalms points out to God, why is it that wicked men prosper here? Why is it they're the most richest, most powerful, and things of this sort? And God actually reveals the answer, that the answer is called mercy, because they're not going to have any life when it's over. That where they're ending, where they're going, believe me, it's going to make all of this look like it was a 5-minute drill, because they're going, oh my God, like everything you do in sin, when you go to hell, you pay for it in the most, oh man, it's like I'm remembering the testimonies on that. Like, it's bad, man. And the thing about going to hell is that nobody down there is saying, this person put me here, or God put me here. They're down there screaming and begging for release, but they just can't bring themselves to repent.
Yeah.
And it's like, people can't fathom that. They're like, wait a minute, man, if I'm burning alive and I'll be repentant. It's like, that's because you're a child of God.
Right.
And you won't even experience it because you're a child of God. You won't even touch the darkness of that place. But then, no, they're not repenting, but they are screaming and regretting it. Yeah.
Yeah. And also, I want to ask you this, Michael. Based on all the research you have done on the fourth and fifth dimensions and all that. Now, look at all of our inventions that we have, like the internet, the light bulb, the automobile. We're just rediscovering things that were lost in the old world. Now, how much of all of these inventions are demon-inspired, do you think?
Pretty much, I'd say all of them, in a sense that nothing you see here wasn't in some time frame at some place or another having an occult connection. When you talk about the very, very past, the children of Adam, that was different. That was because the fact that the first generation were scientists. And that had to do with Adam, because Adam and Eve's knowledge was directly from God. So they raised their kids to be excessively smart. And they were able to tap into resources with more capacity of brain power and more capacity of scientific manipulation of resources, the subduing of the earth, far more than we have it now. So in that environment, it made it easier for man to grasp and understand technology. But even then, the fallen angels, because they're angels and because they're on that other level, they would just advance their technology. They would just make it more, with the promises of, we'll do this, this, and that for you, but it was all meant to just draw them into idolatry. And if you fast forward to now, mankind has been greatly reduced from when they were at that stage in Adam's generation. Now we've been depleted. We've been degenerized, basically. So there's it's not evolution, because evolution is a joke.
Right, it's a farce.
It's more like de-evolution. It's more like we've been reduced to such a point that we can't really grasp fully what Adam used to grasp, but we can attain it if we learn the basics. But the fallen angels, what they do is they go to man and they just tell man, we'll do the work for you. And not only that, heck, we know about these circuits that are underneath the water. So if you build this device and go underneath the water, you can get all those circuits out. We know about vehicles that are dug under here under this mountain. So if you go and, blow a hole in this mountain and mine it out, that can work out for you. Or we know about some entities that are withholding technology and they're guarding it, and we can find a way to get you in there and you can acquire that. And then when they do acquire it, they're like, what is this stuff? How do we put the components together? And then when they're taught that, it goes on and on from there. They have to make a deal after deal just to pick up all this technology they got. And if you look at the premises of the technology they have, it's all radio wave technology, it's wireless technology, and it's all based within transmissions. Transmissions that you would need to just basically align the universe with. And if you look at the dangers of that, it's really just communication with outside forces in the form of mind control, manipulation, and if you go deeper and then go into the corporations and into the engineering field, you find where this stuff is really coming from. And when that happens, it's a scary thought, because it's like every piece of technology we have is really antediluvian. It's old world technology being used in a manner that it was used in the time of Noah when it brought the flood. It was the most horrible sign, if you will, but the greatest sign in terms of what was to come. That the prediction was that when Noah basically, saw mankind fall away into leisurely and were getting more and more adept with their luxury and with their toys, they started to become more open to what the fallen angels had in mind, thinking that their salvation, their strength, or their faith would just eventually win out, but it consumed them. It buried them. And then it literally changed them, because then they were allowing experimentation on themselves. And that was changing the dynamics of humankind. And that's even happening now. There are people who have been injected with all types of stuff, and that causes a lot of this morphing. It's all demonic, but it's demonic with science with it.
Right.
And that's the sadness about it.
And that's fascinating, because right now we see all these push for vaccinations and a cashless society. And, basically the one world order, like, for example, this past June, Britain didn't want to lose their sovereignty, so they voted out the EU. Now, people ask me questions about that, and I say, that's the Lord putting a halt to that, even though it's inevitable that these things will come to pass, but not yet. Like, for example, when he changed the language from Nimrod, Nimrod was building the Tower of Babel, and God said, no. He changed everybody's language. They all went their separate ways. Nimrod was trying to do basically the same thing what the EU and the United Nations is trying to do now. But the Lord put a halt to that. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely, because Britain, the reason why they made that decision, the Parliament was afraid that by combining the economics of England into the formation of the EU, that would deplete the resources, and that would also deplete the defense and the law, and would compromise the laws of Britain itself. It would leave Britain open for invasion, not from so much as a foreign invasion, but from within, because it'll make room for different political ideas to upstart the system they have. That'll lose their independence.
Right.
So they really saw it as, we'll join the EU and we'll be like independent on paper, but we all know that once we become EU and our economy flows with the EU dollar, we'll be a state. We'll be a European state, part of a council, a confederation.
Right.
And they didn't want, they figured that right there is not the road they feel like they can go. Whereas America, the problem America has is the politicians want to do it right now. They want to, they want to straight up have a globalization thing, but the people don't.
Right.
The people are like, well, we may be racist, we may be this, we may be that, but we're definitely not going to join a one world government and consciously upstart and bring forth, this devastating prophecy. So at least at that very least, there are people that are holding back subtly.
Right.
Maybe that's good, because maybe down the road they'll wake up and learn to love each other. But until then, it's you have countries that are committed, and then you got countries that aren't.
Right. And do you? I figure, because people ask me, does America figure into end time prophecy, and if so, why isn't it mentioned in Revelations? And I say because. America is no longer a sovereign country anymore. It becomes something else, because as you and I both know, globalism is inevitable. It will happen. I pray to the Lord not during my lifetime, but it's inevitable. What do you say to that?
It is. A lot of people don't realize that when John saw America, he didn't see it as, United States of America. He saw it all by symbolism. His symbolism, when it's translated properly, when the text is actually known, it talks about a nation that had a symbol of a female that held a golden cup in her hand, that stood on a lone island, that represented a goddess, and a people with a spirituality who had every resource, every power, every vessel, every invention, every technological advantage in the world. There's only one country that fits Babylon, Rome, and that's this country.
Yes,
there's a lot
I
of
agree.
There's a lot of countries that could vie for that competition, But the thing with prophecy is every letter, every word has to fit in a line with what that country really is. There's only one country in the world that fits in a line with every facet of that prophecy, and it's this country. But it's not so much as our open government that Revelation is really talking about. It's talking about a shadow government that exists in this country. There's true power behind it. That's why it's called Mystery Babylon. Mystery Babylon is to mean in the shadow, in the dark, not known to people. It's something people have to look hard into. And when they do, that's when they find the truth and the alignment of it. But it is true that when America reaches that point, when it's no longer hiding, it will be different. It'll have different laws at that point. It'll have a different look at that point. It will be a different nation at that point, definitely.
Yeah, and you're correct about that shadow government. It's very much in existence, and they're pretty much the ones calling the shots, who's going to be elected, and all these things. It's like professional wrestling. All the deals are made behind the doors, and then in front they put on a show for you. Except wrestling doesn't affect our lives like what these people are doing. You see, that's the big thing.
Oh, yeah. You can learn a lot from wrestling. People think, wrestling is, the matches are fake, but the politics of wrestling. You learn the politics of wrestling. Oh, my God. You just learned political science 101.
Yeah, that's true.
It's amazing how that works.
Yeah.
Like, even the best wrestlers, like the ones that are most famous, I mean, they're like politicians. Like, Stone Cold was emulating George Bush. Before George Bush was George Bush, which is shocking. The Rock was emulating Obama before Obama was Obama. I mean, it's pretty shocking.
Right. It's fascinating. And people say to me, wrestling is fake. I say, you know what's fake? Just turn on the news at night and you'll see what they're selling you. That's fake. Yeah.
They more fake.
Yeah.
And then watch wrestling.
Yeah. You see, I work in the education system, and I know for a fact that you know this, that I call it the indoctrination system, because right now they're pushing happily, I might add, Common Core. I call it commie crap, but it's Common Core, and they're happily doing it. And these are teachers, they talk about it like it's normal, and I look at them and I say, don't you understand the agenda you're pushing? It's a global agenda. I mean, it's to dumb people down. It's to stupefy people. And then when I begin to add it all together, like they want to disarm us, they want to stupefy our students, they want to lower the cost of living so that government can raise your kid. It's in your face. All of it is happening. And there are people that look at me and say, you're a conspiracy theorist. I said, no, it's in your face. I said, you can download the UN Charter, and it tells you. And there's also something called I believe it's the 45 steps to turn the country into a socialist. It was taken out in 1957. I downloaded that. I mean, you see all these things. It's like a puzzle. You put it all together, you begin to see, like you just mentioned, the shadow government is pushing all of this stuff, and people are like fat kids in a chocolate factory. They're eating, but don't understand that they're getting fat and diabetic. They don't get it.
Yeah, it's because of the fact they're accepting what the media, what the system, the institution teaches them. It's like the institution does not really, or doesn't even want to teach them the truth about certain things. Like even with the food they eat, or even with believing in certain political agendas. They're brainwashed, and you have to factor some things in, like when people are born. Like we were born in a media age. I mean, there's not a person alive today in this world that was not raised on the media. Like there's not a person alive in this world that can say I lived in a decade where there was no television.
Right.
There was no movies. There's not a person alive that can say that anymore.
Would you say the baby boomers somewhat?
I'm sorry, say again?
Would you say the baby boomers are somewhat like that? Because I've often heard them say they didn't have TVs.
They brag about it, but it's not true.
Okay.
television has been around since the 1930s. Baby boomers were born around the late 30s and mostly the early 40s. That's when baby boomers. So when baby boomers were born, television was in full swing.
Okay.
So they were already watching that big circular box already, and pretty much watching shows that weren't all that different from ours. It was way watered down.
Right.
But it was propaganda shows. It was like, white man knows best, kind of deal, like,
yeah, right.
yeah, and they were watching some crap. Like, if you kind of look at what they were watching, like, it was sort of like, you really believe that? Like, Father Knows Best was more like, white father knows best. Or Leave It to Beaver, it was more like, leave it to the white kid to tell your kids what to do. And, I mean, when you read into what they were watching, it was sort of, that stuff is sick, man. Like, you're complaining about Seinfeld and our generation. Look at this crap. Like, I don't even know. I don't know how you guys got away with that. And then you're going to turn around and tell people that you guys didn't have television and you had to walk 3 miles to school. No, man. You had transportation. You had airplanes. You had the DC-3. You had all of that, man. You had the rail yard. You even had electrical cars and got rid of it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
I know very much about how they grew up, and it's like they lie a lot. It's sort of like it's a propaganda they believed in. I mean, I know in Leave It to Beaver they taught that. They sat down with Beaver, and we had to walk 3 miles to school. And how old are you, Mom? It's like, no, Mom, you had the rail yard, and you were taking the bus and had to put coins in the bus. No. Who taught you that? Like, it's sort of like they were raised the same way we were, and it's just that they had a different propaganda than we had.
Right.
And they just like it was a divide between. We were really, I mean, by the time of our generation, we were more open with this stuff, whereas in their generation, it was taught, well, we're doing it, but you don't talk about it. You just don't talk about it. So put Playboy under your dresser and just don't talk about that. And we never had Playboy. It didn't come out until 1985. and and then all that stuff was out there when they were kids. And they were reading it, they were getting it, and there was no generation spared from that circular electrical box in the living room.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, and then you have the newspapers and you have all sorts of again, the school system, the newspapers, the television, the movies. You have all of that basically conditions your frame of thinking.
Yeah. It really was the fact that that's why they think the way they do.
Yeah.
They don't want to admit stuff because they love it. I remember reading things. I was just writing about it today. I was writing a new book about it, and I had a chapter on that. And I was like writing about the fact how people view television. Like when they talk about television today, it's like television changed our lives. It made us smarter. It made us in touch with the world. And I was like, what a bunch of crap. That ever happened? Like we had television for over 67 years on a mainstream basis, 75 years on, it was available at a store near you for like $2,000. And it, like, nothing good happened from it. Like, everyone is more matter, if anything. Like, people have more divisional groups now than they were before. People are just either New Agers, they're Wiccans. It's like, man, it's worse. Yeah, and it's like, what progress?
It glorifies more the garbage, basically. But the same garbage that we read about in the Bible that many of the Christians were fighting against.
Yeah, definitely. Because the Romans, they used to build the theaters,
the amphitheaters.
They had all that stuff. Like the Romans had the theaters. That was where you had dramatic acting, and then their actors were known to be possessed. Like what they would do is they played these characters, and like if they were going to play Zeus or they're going to play Phoebus, any one of these like false gods, they literally had to learn about that doctrine. They had to learn about the personality of that person, and then they had to go through a literal ritual, which sometimes involved a sacrifice, the death of a person.
And based on your videos, that still happens today. Like, for example, I heard Keanu Reeves, he locks himself in a closet and talks to his other person, they say, And when he looks at himself in the theater, he can't look at himself in the theater because he says that's not him.
Yeah, because some of them did things to enable them to be actors. It's ancient ritual. That's what actors don't tell you about, is what Hollywood is on the internal scene. On the internal scene, it isn't a cult. It's a literal secret society. Like Stanley Kubrick exposed it, but it really is like that. That it's a real society where it's Roman-based. It was birthed out of the Greek temples and then birthed out of the Egyptian temples before them. It really is a real society where you have to go in that thing. You got to learn their rituals, and you got to do certain things in order to receive those spirits. Because those spirits is what makes them good actors. The energy of the demons, they converge into art form characters. So when Keanu does movies, when Johnny Depp does movies, they don't watch their movies.
Right.
The reason being is because the audience can see the imagery. They see the actual demon.
Amazing.
They see that. It's like, because if they can just see Johnny Depp would just watch himself because he stares himself in the mirror and loves himself. But in the movie, he can't enjoy it like everyone else can because he knows who's up there, and he can even see it, and it's like it freaks him out. And same thing with Keanu. Who's the other guy? Brandon Lee kind of had a little difficulty with that.
Yeah, I remember you gave a lesson on that as well. Him and Bruce Lee. It's fascinating.
Yeah, the two of them had a lot of demonic problems, and the problems with them were very extensive. Like not so much with Brandon. Brandon, was a little more watered down. His father, Bruce, God, man, that guy. Oh, really, anti-God. But it was a shame because he was brilliant. Like he really hated racism. He did have a very honorable side. He really did. I have to very much respect him for that. But, the religious side was all messed up.
And let me ask you this, Michael. His skill, do you believe 100% of it was demon-inspired or some of it was his?
I based it on Bruce's own words. Bruce believes that it was the spirits that he picked up through his family and through his training and guru and meditation and in the TM, in the Tao Chi system. He stated that when that connects, when that ignites for him, he described it as a kinetic energy. And he even stated that when I'm in that zone, not even God himself will save you from me. That I'm bigger than God.
That's amazing.
That was quoted by him. Because what he was revealing was that he's good. Naturally, as himself, he's good. And being among the Lee family and having the reputation he had, he was that good. But was he the best in the world? In order for him to accomplish that, he went to a more darker means to accomplish that. And that's why his skills, his most apt skills, were demonic. He would combine it with his philosophy. He had a way of controlling the energy to such a point that he didn't seem, like unalarming to people. He would really inspire, make you feel good. But at the same time, he's withholding the darkness that's making him do it. And that's what Linda used to talk about, his wife. Linda used to say, he would make you cry, but he would be in the dressing room, and there's like poltergeist activity going on.
That's very sad.
It would literally kill him, almost put him into cold sweats. And she would constantly tell him that he would have to slow down and things like that. But he would not come to God. He had a certain animosity with Jesus that it was developed from the racism like he experienced in America with the churches too. So even when Linda's family were Christians, and they treated him like crap, not because he wasn't a Christian, but because he was Asian. Yeah. Which really broke him. Like, much of that anger was really redirected at the wrong area. He directed it at Christianity and not at the families just for being racist.
Correct.
Yeah. So Bruce is it's sad. He's a one celebrity. I could talk about all the celebrities in terms of, letting you know that not every one of them, but the ones I do know in terms of investigation. But Bruce is the one celebrity where I have sad feelings every time I bring it up because it's sad because it was wasted talent. Yeah. I really feel like.
My next question to you is: do you believe Hollywood is basically to become an actor? Those A-listers, 100% of them are into that nonsense. You think?
It's more like 98%. Like they got some in there that they don't have a full control on. You know, like some of them can come in there through like political ways, political means, like their families can arrange something. But most of them come through the occult. You know, because of that, it's traditional. It's based not just with Hollywood and government works hand in hand. The shadow government uses Hollywood to promote propaganda and to promote ideas that inspire people. The government can never ever reveal that. Hollywood knows that as their biggest secret. That's why Hollywood can get away with all kinds of things, because they have a lot of ammunition too. And with that, it comes with keeping secrets in a very complex, dangerous environment. That's what makes Hollywood not a joke. Like, yeah, the movies are a joke, you know, all that stuff. But when it comes to the business aspect of it, it's deadly. And the only way you get in that is that a lot of people have to vouch for you. A lot of degrees have to be earned with certain fraternities. And when you can accomplish that and make those connections, then you're brought in. But then, even when you're brought in, there's no guarantee of success. There's just guarantee of they'll put you in touch with demons. They'll make the steps to happen for you. But even success cannot even be achieved by Satan. That's something that really people don't know. There is a double whammy to this. Like, some celebrities can achieve a fame they never expected. They can even know that God had a hand in it, but they won't change. You know, and it's kind of sad because there are some celebrities who experienced that, you know, and still didn't change. But as for A-list actors, man, they are mostly demonically possessed actors. Whether they want to or not, they do movies they don't usually want to do. And if you really ask them, what kind of movie would you do, you would be shocked by the answer. You really would. You'd be shocked. Like, yeah, but they don't do it because someone else writes their movies. Yeah. And someone else puts it all together for them.
And you know, how about the actor like Sylvester Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger, especially Arnold, for example? When you read about all his successes, I mean, the guy's not perfect because he failed at marriage, you know, that's one of his failures, but basically everything in his life has been a success. What do you think that it's attributed to? Demons also, you think?
Well, Schwarzenegger's father, if you go back into his history, like Gustav Schwarzenegger, that was his father. His father was part of the Nazi Party. Right. And he was also charged with insider connection in regards to the stock market exchange. And that actually helped him to evade war crimes. And then when he raised Arnold, he really raised him in the Nazi-style camp. So even though his father had money, Arnold was really raised in a basement almost, like raised to hate people, you know, really to be selfish, narcissistic, and raised in pain, you know. So by the time that guy was 21, Arnold Schwarzenegger, he was worth $1 million because he had enough insider knowledge to manipulate the stock market. That shows you how connected he was at 21. Wow. And to have the Nazi background and to come in through the bankers shows you how high up connected he was. His career really was handed to him. You know, it really was presented to him. You know, and he knew he was going to be in movies before he even won Mr. Olympia. Yeah. He was very sure of it because all the information he had was on the inside, and he's just kissing as much butt as he can, playing as many people as he can while he was lifting weights and breaking records with that. Basically, just making the right connections so that he can write his own ticket to fame. Rather, you know, and that's why he got all gay in the 70s too, because he was experimenting with a lot of the pedophiles and people in Hollywood.
Fascinating. So there's a lot of stuff about that he's trying to squash. You know, that stuff might come out.
Yeah, I mean, he can't with some of us, because some of us know we know the trails too well. You know, like there's a few wrestlers, there's a few bodybuilders that he has slept with in that first documentary when he was doing Pumping Iron. And that got busted by the photographer. He had this female photographer film the apartment that he had to stay in the year he won Mr. Olympia for the second time. And the guy that was living in him in the apartment. And she said that she had to spend the night on the couch. And what happened was she thought, there was two separate rooms, and he'd go in his room and he goes in that room, but instead the guy goes into Arnold's room.
Right.
And then Arnold invites her in to take pictures of all things. So he wants to take pictures with this other guy while these two are naked in bed.
Wow. And you know something, Michael? I read something like that in his book, his very first book that came out in 1977. And he said that the guy brought him over from Germany to Austria, a gay guy, promoter, who can do a lot of things for him. And he outwardly said no. He called the guy, not by his name in the book, he called him Schneck in the book. But he said that no, he didn't go that way. And he never really delved into deeply on that particular thing in his book.
It's because of the fact they all deny it, because of the image that they carry.
Right.
If Arnold was doing romantic movies and he didn't have $50 million with a tie-in of $200 million in franchise with the toys and everything, he'd tell you he was gay, or he'd tell you he'd experiment, or he wouldn't give a crap. But because of the fact he was the macho guy, that's the stuff people remember him for. For him to be noted to have done homosexual acts for these parts, man, that'll ruin him.
Yeah.
You're talking about taking money out of them. It would. These people will lie through their teeth for $1, let alone $1 million.
Yeah, that's very true. Very true what you're saying. I've read other books on other bodybuilders who competed against him and trained in the same gym he trained in, and they couldn't stand him. They said he had the typical German arrogant attitude.
Yeah, because he had so much insider information, they used to throw it in their face. Because he would say how, because they would make fun of him with that Hercules movie, because it was like he had some first attempts that failed,
right.
So they had to keep repackaging him in order for him to finally get it. And he would just be arrogant about it, man. Like, he would talk about how his muscles are better, or his look was better, he had more money, or my car's better, look at my woman, and he was just some pig. Like, it's sort of like, you're like bodybuilding, man. People are working out, and you got a lot of angst, and here's this jerk wants to show you his butt and talk about how great he is.
Yeah.
And he's smoking pot and while he's doing rips, and it's like, you want to smoke pot and do rips and shake your thing at me, man. Like, I feel like dropping this weight on your head. And that's how we felt.
Yeah.
They couldn't stand him. I remember there was a story where guys wanted to jump him, but they said they wanted to do it.
Well, I read a story with Frank Zane, who competed against him. When he came over to California, because he was a teacher in New Jersey, and went out there to train and compete, he stood in his apartment with him, and he messed up his head big time, and he told him all the wrong things to do, and he beat him. And he publishes articles in the magazines, and he said that despite how they build him up, there's a lot of people that do not like him at all. And when he goes up on television and starts talking, they say, don't believe anything he says because he lies. He's a liar. Like, for example...
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Like, there was another colleague we had, Luke Radowski. He does We Are Change. He's not committed to a Christian yet, but he does do some pretty comprehensive political videos. It's like, if you want to get on the political side of some raw stuff, he one time confronted Arnold, and they were going down the street, and this was at the time Arnold was bringing his son to these politicians, and the House was known for having this one politician who was a Jewish banker who had recently got busted for having a bunch of boys over there, with the whole bathtub situation. And he's bringing this kid, his own son, to this house. And it's just disgusting him, man, because even though it doesn't look like it on the surface, you pretty much know, this is Arnold introducing his son to them, And now we get to see it. Now we're seeing him come out of the limousine, and he's about to do this. So Luke tried to hit him with some questions to distract him. Arnold wouldn't answer anything. And Luke just, man, he buried him. He just said, "Hey, Arnold, do you want to talk about your father's Nazi belt?"
Yeah.
And oh God, I remember when he said that. Like, you could see, like, Arnold had like steam. Like, it even couldn't see steam, but you know how you can feel when a man's like about to blow up, but he has to contain himself. He can't do it, but he really wants to just come over the barricade. That's how he looked. Like, he looked like his head was going to pop off. And I wish it did, because I was like, Dickie, we were really soft. Like, then the world will see what this guy's like. You know, and here he is about to bring his kid, knowing what they're going to do with this kid. You know, like, it sickened me, man. I was like, I can't believe I ever saw a movie this guy did. Like, I wish I could, like, get my hands and at least say, look, I want my money back. I want my money back. Be fixed, man.
Michael, it's coming to a point where we can't listen to music anymore, watch movies anymore, because they're all so corrupt.
Yeah, you know, just totally. Like, and he's not apologetic too. He don't care. You know, even Stallone. I remember Stallone threw him under a bus, and you know, not just threw him under a bus, but he told the truth. He was like, Stallone hated that guy in the 80s. Yeah, hated him. Stallone made the comment of, look, I would do Rambo. He would do Commando. Whatever I do, he does it next. Yeah. And for some reason, when he does a movie, the next year, my movie bombs, and I can't get another part. And the only time I'm getting kudos is when I do Rambo, because when I do Rambo, he's going to do the Terminator.
Right.
He was copying him, like he was showing how every idea Stallone would use in one movie, you would see it in the next movie, in an Arnold movie. Yeah. And it was just repeating the pattern. And there was even a few movies he stole from Stallone. Like, Stallone was, I think he was up for Predator. There wasn't any real offer on that to him, like, publicly, but Arnold made sure there wasn't, because he snaked him. You know, like, oh, no, you should take me, I'm bigger. Even though, like, well, Stallone's English is better, like, oh, I'll work on mine. It will just compensate with special effects. Yeah. That's what they did. Yeah. You know, it's the only reason why anyone watched it. We watched it because Kevin Hall was playing the Terminator. It was a great opportunity to see him knock you around a few, because that was actually fun for me to watch. Like, Kevin Hall is like 7 feet, and he's like in this Predator outfit, and he's blind, meaning he can't even see. Mm-hmm. So every time he took one of those big swings on Arnold, and when you saw Arnold get like his head knocked back, yeah, he really was getting his head knocked back. Like, wow. Kind of. For people who want to see Arnold get his butt kicked for real, they should watch the final scene in Predator.
I think that wasn't a stage. That was real, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it was even Arnold. He got a concussion in one of the scenes because he was getting knocked that hard. Because Kevin Hall is real big. Like, if people ever seen him, like, you know, without the costume, huge guy, like a giant, you know, like a big man. And I was really thinking to myself, like, see, that's a guy, like, if he swings on you, you're really going to have to get speed and creative. Yeah. You know, you're really creative at that moment. Yeah. And so to go, like, heads up with him, you know, like, to go arm to arm with him. Right. You know, you can see how that's going to be a problem, you know, and Arnold couldn't even do it, because Arnold's like 6'1". Yeah. So he was small compared to Kevin. Yeah. Yeah.
And how about Stallone, Michael? You think him also, he's gone through those ritual things?
Oh, that's in his past. That's with his mom. And Stallone's mom, Jackie, she was in the fortune telling. Oh. And that was in the house. Excuse me. Excuse me.
Bless you.
That was in Stallone's house growing up. And Jackie at the time had a fortune telling / palm reading deal where you were like able to pay like, you know, $5. You can go to Stallone's house when he was a kid, and his mom would basically pray to the spirits with you. And she worked with people in Santeria. She worked with people in Obai Magic or Voodoo. That's the Black Voodoo set. She worked with people like that. And she was also a professional wrestling promoter.
Oh, interesting.
So she was she promoted a few male matches, and then she got dedicated with the females. Mm. And that also gave her some mafia connections at the time, and she had connections with some steroids at the time too.
Oh.
So Stallone growing up was learning two things. He was learning the occultism of his mom, and he was learning the athletics, the darker athletics, using steroids and doing weight training. And that's what made him kind of nuts. Like when he was a kid, he used to jump from roof to roof, but he used to do some crazy type stuff. And what happened is he had some epiphany when he was in his 20s, where he had a dream of some type that he was going to be famous one day, and that impulsed him to literally walk out of his house. And he vowed with his family he wasn't coming back there unless he fulfilled it. His mom wrote him off at the time. His mom kind of just, basically disowned him because he wanted to be a movie star, which was like, a crazy thing. It's sort of like, oh really, you're going to be, it's like someone comes to you, I'm going to be a tennis star. No, you're going to go to school. That's what you're going to do. And, but he became a homeless guy.
Yeah, I read about that in his book. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was a real rough period because he wasn't prepared. Being homeless in New York City, man. I mean, in New York City. Oh God, man,
that's rough. Yeah.
Yeah. So he ran into the wrong elements there, and that was leading. The thing with New York City is also it's the hub for where actors go to cut their teeth. See, anyone who makes it in L.A., they have the New York City connection. That's where you bounce around. You bounce from those two cities to develop your connection. So he's already there, but he's learning the occult aspect, and he can't really get in. And then the pornography industry brought him in. And the
interesting.
Pornography industry, that's very satanic. That's actually been admitted that most of the companies back then, they were owned by people who, according to the FBI, they were members of the Church of Satan.
Amazing.
So when Stallone came in there, he was dealing with a few mafiosos, and then the guy who owned the production company that filmed Stud and Kitty, the Party at Kitty and Studs, he was a Satanist at the time. He hired Stallone, and Stallone worked for him probably about a couple days, made about $250, and did a few porn scenes, and then he was doing a few porn movies after that, and then that's how he got into the industry.
And,
so his background's very occultic.
And I read that now he's searching for the Lord. What do you think of that?
I really hope it's true. I mean, it's like Stallone has a yin and yang thing with him. So if Stallone said in '92 he was looking for the Lord, I'd say, yeah, okay, I won't hold my breath.
Right.
But if he's saying it now, considering some of the things he's done before, it could be because he's kind of, just sick of it, kind of just tired of it.
Yeah.
If you read into his interviews and read into what he previously said about why he did the Expendables, where he really felt that was saving the lives of a lot of those guys, because those guys were near to suicide at the time he came to them and said, hey, let's do this movie. And he felt the kinship with that. And then he really started diving into himself about this thing about, I'm probably going to go to hell. And, they're like killing people. they tend to get like that, and I guess for good reason, considering you're 70 and you're still doing steroids. It's like a heart attack any day, man. So, and even with that, I think that's kind of why he's doing it, because he realizes his time is up.
Yeah, and to change the subject a bit, Michael, one of the things that fascinate me in your video, Demons Come From Hell, is they call it the Mona Lisa on the moon. Now, my question to you is this: is this person a pre-flood person or a post-flood person?
Pre-flood.
Pre-flood.
Yeah, she came from Noah's day, and she actually died during the flood. Like the ship and the whole thing has sporadic water, acylic water on it, which was like one of the components that William Rutherford was talking about. And that really showed that there was some catalysm on the moon that was even affected by catalysm occurring on Earth, because some of the rock indentures around it and even with the environment that the ship was in, with the gold kind of scattered around, a lot of that gold came from Earth. And so that, for one of the things we know about the land of Havala that was around Eden, that the gold that was there was in the form of rocks, and they were literally mountains. So a lot of the continents were smashed apart during the flood, and that caused what's called geopressure, because what happened is the water will leak down into the core. And when that happened, that caused a series of explosions. But the core explosions are atom explosions, so that's nuclear. But it's nuclear fusion explosions, so that's giving power to the impacting rocks. So when the ruptures come up, the fuses are like lit with such degree that it sent the rocks out. And whatever was going on in the moon at the time, I don't know all the details, but I can just tell you that they were at war at the time the flood happened. They were killing each other mercilessly at the time it was happening.
So these people can travel back and forth? They had that technology?
Yeah, they did. The universe, what people don't realize is, in that age, in that time frame, the sons of God, when we talk about the human version of them, they represented what was called the God of the universe. That's what they called him. And the reason being was because he was the God of the whole universe, not just the earth. That mankind one time had the ability, had the closeness with the solar system, the entire universe. There was a time when mankind had knowledge of all of those things, and it was easy to attain, and it was easy to figure out. It wasn't a mystery. It wasn't a conspiracy. It didn't need to be bottled under. And with that, mankind had rights to the solar system in that way to learn more with God and be guided with it. But they ruined it. They ruined it by allowing demonic entities to really interfere with all that. And that cursed the planets. That left the planets in the state that it's in now. They're cursed areas where mankind should never go now.
Right, they're all void now.
Yeah, because, see, the stars and the planets and the orbs, they've all been cursed and affected by that event. Because before that event, the stars in the solar system were at different orbitable positions. And geometrically, it made space travel a lot more accessible back then. And that it didn't take a whole lot for them to harness energy sources, considering what they're doing with now. It was more easier then. But the temptation to have all that power, to have all that ability, is really also what corrupted them as well. And yeah, that ability, what people will surprise people to know, is that after the flood, that ability was even within certain shadow governments in Egypt, with the Mayans,
right,
and with ancient Indians. And we have evidence on all of that. That space travel just didn't stop after the flood, and it didn't reemerge again with the United States and with the Nazis as well. It's been going on in the shadow for quite a long, long time. And that's something that people don't know, is that generations have scientists and men born to understand and harness the resources. That never stops, you know?
Yeah.
Mankind has always been given teachers. It's just that some teachers do their job right, some do it wrong.
Right, right. Yeah, because I also remember in one of your lessons you talk about portals. And I said to myself, you know, if I could harness a portal, that'll save me a lot of money on airfare and train fare. I could just pop in and out. You know, you could buy a house out in California. You're here in New York. You could pop in and out. You could work anywhere. You know?
Well, in a sense, it's sort of like that. We talk about teleportation. When we talk about portals, it's like to enter a portal. The physics of it is that it's a bending of light. It's a bending of physics. To understand it, it's not so complicated.
That's amazing, because I try to wrap my brain around that, and I still find it hard. It's very fascinating, but you really need to try to comprehend it.
Well, it's because of the fact we're not trained in proper understanding of light frequencies and light waves. We're not taught that in school. But when you do learn it, and when you do pick up on it, it's actually a lot simpler than people think. Like, take your television screen, okay? When you're watching television, what you're actually watching are electrical light signals. It's just sent from one area to your area via receiver. Teleportation is taking light, taking you in the center of light, and bending it, and then just sending you to another location. But this time, it's sending you to that location by physically bending all the light, all the area that's in front of you, all that distance, all that miles, and just flashing you to another point. And people go, God, I can't fathom that. And yet you watch television.
Yeah, that is amazing.
A thing like, if you can believe that some area that's 100 miles away from you can send a satellite up into space and transmit the light from that space all the way down to the Earth's screen, that is already the principle of teleportation. We do it all the time. And when people don't even touch it. When you use your cell phone, your voice becomes basically bionic signals. It's an electro radio wave at that point. So your voice becomes a radio wave that's being traveled all the way to China. So technically, you're in China, but not fully. Your voice is in China.
Amazing.
Is about taking light, and instead of using light to send pieces of yourself, send yourself all the way there. And so with that, it's a physics that works, and it's a technology that can be developed. If you develop it, you probably will have to run for your life because you're not working for the government.
Oh, yeah.
It's something that people don't realize. It's controversial science,
right?
But it's real science.
Do you believe the shadow government, the things we don't see, the real elites practice all of these things? You think?
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the next wave. What they already bring out, they're already 3 steps ahead.
Yeah.
So let's say when they brought out digital television. Well, they already had it.
Oh.
They had been out, but they decided to bring it on distribution because it would open up another company and they could make more money.
Oh.
Laptop, computers, already had it. But the reason why it was brought out like 20, 30 years later was for distribution. That's an opportunity to make money and reconnect the world, and that was for the globalization policy.
Right.
Even with radio and television, it was around before it was sold. And the principles of light and radio frequency was introduced because they wanted the world to become more knowledgeable, because mass distribution meant that people were going to have to learn how to use this stuff. And that's why they started teaching them this stuff again. So every time they release something, they're actually a lot more ahead.
Oh.
So if they're already sending light frequencies at such fast rates, they're already teleporting. If we got a guy on the moon, publicly, we already have a colony on there.
Amazing.
Because that's the way it works. When you do shadow operations, you're using what's called misdirection. So a person who is a shadow agent is going to create a scenario, a situation, a story, all the bit, give you all the evidence, everything you'll need that convinces your mind. But my real intent, you'll never see. And when you do, I'll make sure you never believe it. I'll confuse you, because you'll never fathom that can be possible. Because that's what that is. That's what you call shadow tactics. That's what military operations are like. That they're done for deception.
And all that comes from the demonic realm.
Yeah, but it's a web that is intricate and it's been working for a long time. And it's a web that was even described in The Art of War. The Art of War was really a doctrine about the shadow government, about how operations are done. And they're done just like that. It's about creating a coin and showing just a quarter, but blocking the sun, if you know what I mean.
Fascinating. You know, Michael, I could spend hours and hours talking with you. I want to do a part 2 with you pretty soon. Right now, I'm going to wrap it up. And
Okay.
I'm definitely going to call you again, and we're going to talk more, because I have so many more questions to ask you. More questions on, basically what's happening in the world, globalization. I didn't touch upon giants and things like that we need to talk about. But you covered a heck of a lot, and I really appreciate you taking the time to give me this opportunity. And again, I'm a subscriber, and I'm going to be a future supporter of your ministry. And
Thank you.
I want to say God bless you. And as always, I'm glad I got a chance to talk to you, because I consider you not only a brother in Christ, but also a friend. You're my friend.
You're my friend too. God bless you, brother.
Okay, brother.
Here.
All right. God bless you, okay?
You too. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.